Welcome back. Just about a half hour remaining for voters to cast ballots in a Senate runoff election in Mississippi. Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith facing former Clinton Agriculture Secretary Mike Espy. President Trump has held 3 rallies for Senator Hyde-Smith. 11 Trump-endorsed Senate candidates, by the way, won elections on November 6th. This one's a little deferred. And we'll fix that tonight. Republicans, well, I certainly hope it's tonight. Republicans will have 53 Senate seats if Hyde-Smith, as expected, wins tonight. Joining me now to talk about the Mississippi race, the state of American politics, and, of course, their brand new book, former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, former Trump campaign aide David Bossie, co-authors of this book, Trump's Enemies, How the Deep State is Undermining the Presidency. Gentlemen, great to have you here. Congratulations on the book.
Thanks so much.
Did I say we recommend this to you highly? We do.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Let's start with the election tonight. The view is that she has every opportunity to win here. The question is, will she?
She's going to win tonight in Mississippi. Look, the president has seen, we've seen this now many times. When those candidates who run for office embrace the president's agenda and put America first, they win. When they run from the president, they lose. I don't understand why Republicans haven't figured this out. Donald Trump's agenda of cutting taxes, cutting regulations, and putting more money in the pockets of Americans is a winning agenda across the board. So when you embrace that agenda, you win at the ballot box. When you say, I'm not sure I'm with you, Mr. President, you lose, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, getting rid of the rhinos and the people who want to distance themselves from this president, who's the most successful president in the first 2 years of a presidency. I mean, it's astonishing to me, David, that just as Corey said, I mean, why would you want to separate yourself from success? That's how dumb the losers were.
There's a lot of them, too, a lot of them. And at all levels, I might add. But Senator Hyde-Smith has a very good track record, has a very good voting record, having been in the Senate now for
and stands with the president.
And stands with the president, embraced the president's agenda. And what we see is in the closing days, these 2 rallies yesterday are going to get her across the finish line.
And you guys have got to be very, very proud working for the man who has set the standard for work, the work ethic of any president from now on. I mean, when you see somebody pull an Obama or a Bush, it isn't going to work so hot. People are going to expect presidents to work like this president works from here into perpetuity.
He put us down. I mean, he was the hardest working man I've ever been around. We were working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we could just barely keep up. I wondered what you meant by punching down. Yeah, we could barely keep up with him, and we're a lot younger than him.
And here's the thing, Lou. No one talks about his age. You know, when you remember the first time he left
that's
the
a great
country,
point. You're
they
exactly
used to say,
right.
well, Donald Trump is going to be the oldest elected president ever. And now the media says, Mr. President, can you please slow down?
We can't keep up with you.
Look, and so he left the country. He went to Saudi Arabia, he went to Poland, he went to Israel. They said, will you please stop traveling? It's too much for us. Please. And he's the first guy they know he's up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. He's going to bed at 1 o'clock at night. No one's questioning his ability to do this job anymore because of the stamina that he has.
Well, they can't question anything about his achievements, his successes, his work ethic, his commitment to America and to Americans. I mean, the only thing the national left-wing media can do is continue to drive the special counsel and the nonsense that we all have put up with. And I think, I really believe this. All of the smart folks that we have on this show say, don't fire the special counsel. I have to tell you, I'm so sick of this operation that the Mueller witch hunt, I can't stand it. I can only imagine how frustrated he is.
Well, and that's what we talk about in Trump's enemies. We talk.
Are you bringing us back to your book?
We are.
Corey's saying thank you very much.
In the book, we talk about, and we have an extended, wide-ranging interview that we did with the president. The first book that has an interview with the president in it is this book, and we're very proud of that fact. But this book covers the vast left-wing conspiracy that is against this president. The media, members of Congress of both parties, the intelligence communities, the Comey, Clapper, Brennan wing of our intelligence communities.
You mean the Obama leftovers in the bureaucracy and the ongoing... I've never seen even a shade of shame from them for trying to run a shadow government against this president. It is appalling. And the national left-wing media no matter what else they want to claim, they're working in absolute complicity with the left in this country.
Lou, we asked the president, do you think that Crossfire Hurricane, the operation that the FBI was running against the Republican nominee to spy on American citizens on domestic soil, Mr. President, do you think that Barack Obama and his team, specifically Obama, knew about it? And he says, yes, he did. And if somebody did this to Barack Obama, the mainstream media would have called it treason, and those people would be in jail for 100 years. But because they did it to Trump, there's been no accountability.
You talked about enemies within the White House. Name some of the enemies.
Oh, there's so many. Look, I'll start with a couple that we all know. We know Gary Cohn was an enemy. We know that Rob Porter was an enemy. We know Sean Spicer was an enemy. We know that people who go into that White House who didn't support the president in the campaign, didn't vote for him on Election Day, and went in to take care of their own agenda is what we're talking about.
How many more enemies are within the White House working day in and day out?
Lou, one of the things that we haven't found out is who Anonymous is. So we clearly know there are more. And
You got an idea?
Well, I don't know who it is. I think I know who it isn't, but I don't. It's hard. It's easier to do that.
Well, that's a pretty good accomplishment, I would say.
It's easier to figure out.
There are a lot of candidates for Anonymous.
There are, and it is disappointing to guys like us who want this president to succeed, so America succeeds, that there are people around him that believe they are there to protect America from him.
Two surprises about the enemies, and that is the leakers that still persist in the White House, and the fact that the White House does not have a system that would detect a recording in the Oval Office or when anyone would be sitting and speaking with the president. The fact that so many leaks have come out of the White House, and I'm not going to name names, that's your job, but there are names that are prominent and repeated that appear in the media. Is there an appetite for change within the White House? I'll ask it that way.
I think there is, and I think there should be. Look, some of these leaks have been found out, but this president was just flying to London to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the end of World War I, and he had a conversation with Theresa May, one of our allies.
Right.
And that whole conversation was leaked. How is that possible? How many people
Well, you know what's
listening?
interesting is Theresa May has never been a friend of this president.
That's right.
That should be acknowledged by everyone who covers the president, covers Capitol Hill as well. David, you get the last word.
No, what Corey's talking
Unless
about.
Corey decides otherwise.
No, definitely not. We are tired of this president working so hard for the America First agenda that we all support, and to have people around him who don't support that agenda, it needs to end. He needs a team, Lou, that is going to be solely focused on the 2020 reelect. That means the public policy,
Well, that's Brad
legislative...
Parscale, right?
No.
You're talking about within the White House.
The White House team has to be solely focused on his reelection.
Gentlemen, congratulations on the book. It's always great to see you. I've got 100 questions that we could ask, but we'd need the rest of the network's time this evening. Great to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. David, thank you.